What's the most bizarre thing you have caught yourself doing after your brain's autopilot misfired? Come home from work while eating a cookie. I throw the cookie wrapper in the drawer where I usually put my keys and throw my keys in the trash. Sometimes I throw the food in the trash and keep the wrapper in my hand. Saw a dude stopped at a green light, waited for it to turn red, and he just went on his way. Clearly you were not informed that it was opposite day. I bus to work. One day I got ready for work, made coffee and walked to the bus. When I got on the bus I realized I got on the wrong one. Same line but wrong number. I got off the bus to wait for the right one. Walked across the street. Got on the bus going back towards my place. Walked up to my apartment. Took off my pants and climbed back into bed and fell asleep. I only usually ride the bus to and from work and it's one bus. So I guess my brain just thought second bus going back home. Lolding, I would be so stressed out about being late. I needed to use the toilet, so I went to the bathroom and pulled my pants plus underwear down. I zoned out and next thing I knew I was having a shower. This one makes me laugh far more than I should. I like to imagine you were sort of mid-conversation with someone and nipped out to quickly relieve yourself, and then they hear the shower running. Threw my toothbrush in the toilet after I was done brushing. Getting undressed for a shower, threw my socks straight in the toilet instead of the laundry basket. I once woke up needing to pee and in my half asleep haze I walked over to the cat's box and peed into it like it was the most normal thing in the world, then went back to sleep. I woke up remembering this, trying to figure out why I did that because I had been 100% sober. This is a place where pee goes. I was in the car, going home from a very early medical test. I reached over to change the annoying Christmas music, only to realize the radio wasn't on. I was humming. I like to imagine you turned the knob down and, in frustration for it not getting quieter, absent-mindedly started humming louder. This actually happened to me last Saturday. I was hungover, so I decided to go to Starbucks drive-thru near my house and get a big iced coffee. I drive up to pay, give the guy my card, and then drive home. Left the card there, didn't take the coffee. I was halfway home before I realized I did that before. Started driving away, and a minute later said, "Hey, they forgot to give me my drink." 30 more seconds. They forgot to give me my food. 15 seconds later, I've made a mistake. I've answered this before, but licking a crab while looking at my ice pop. Was this a cooked crab or was Ol Snippy alive? I woke up the other day and took my toothbrush and put toothpaste on it to brush my teeth. When I noticed my toothbrush was the wrong color, I almost brushed my teeth with a razor. To be fair, the plaque will be gone. On the other hand, so will the top layer of your enamel. Throw away the cooking instructions immediately, sometimes twice or more when I need it. When the wife was on birth control, she had asked me one time to get her pill for her, so I went and got it. As I was bringing it to her I popped it in my mouth and chugged some water. I didn't realize this until I got to her and gave her the glass of water when she said, "Where's the pill?" I did that with my husband's acid controller pill once. Carried it all the way upstairs into the bedroom before I swallowed it in front of him. Just looked at each other for a second, and went back downstairs to get him another one. The birth control was probably a little worse. I tried to say, "I love you baby and you're beautiful woman" to my wife and it came out, "I love you beautiful boy." Yesterday after I picked my car up from getting new tires the mechanic was explaining something to me and I tried to say awesome and perfect at the same time and got pawsome. Sat down in a movie theater, tried to put seatbelt on, multiple times. My sister did this on our couch once. One weekend, there were 2 weddings and 3 funerals, all with soloists and instrumentalists between Friday evening and Saturday afternoon at the church where I was music director. At the second wedding, my autopilot took over and I found myself playing a funeral hymn instead of the wedding processional. I had to shift gears immediately and modulate into the wedding music to make it sound as if it were intentional, rather than my mind's misfire. I had to shift gears immediately and modulate into the wedding music to make it sound as if it were intentional, rather than my mind's misfire. I love this. Easier to do some semi-advanced music magic than to pay attention to what you're doing. Had a lot on my mind and was thinking too much. Went to go make a sandwich and brought a loaf of bread to the bathroom and sat on the toilet with it. I'm glad you stopped there because that could have escalated very quickly. A while ago, I could feel a bad cold coming on, so I decided to take a day and make myself some chicken soup so I could eat well while I was ill with zero extra effort. I threw in some chicken carcasses I'd saved up in the freezer, chopped some onions, threw in some carrots, added some bay leaves and herbs, the whole deal. I boiled it down 4 hours until it was absolutely perfect. Then I drained the whole thing through a colander into the sink. This made me cry a little inside. Poured cider into a bowl of cereal instead of milk. 0/10 would not recommend. 0/10. Please explain your experience. Asking for science. Put both contacts into one eye. Couldn't figure out why everything was blurry in both eyes. Must have dreamed that my alarm went off. Got up and showered at 1 AM one morning. Only figured it out when it was still dark when I was done. I play hockey a few mornings before work. About half the time, I load up my stuff into my car after, then click my garage door opener out of habit, as I'm sitting in the rink parking lot, several miles away from my garage. I don't do that anywhere else. I did the contacts thing once. I was on my hands and knees looking for the other one for like 30 minutes. Even got parents to help. Long time ago. Mid-90s. Was dating a guy who lived over an hour away. Left really late at night to drive home. Super tired. About halfway through the drive I saw a hand come out from the backseat and try to grab my hair. I screamed and hit the brakes. Luckily there was no other traffic on the road. Turns out it was my own hand. I think I was trying to move my hair out of the back of my coat. Went to get donuts on a Sunday morning, realized my mistake as I pulled into my parking space at work. I used to play hockey at an ice rink that was a couple buildings away from my work. I can't tell you how many times I had to turn around in my work's parking lot. Not me, but my grandmother's friend. This woman was a bored as frick housewife whose only human contact was her 3 young kids and her husband when he came home from work. Her husband was attending a work dinner and the wives were finally invited. This all occurred in the 50s, so she was extremely excited. She was dressed as if for a white tie dinner and was so pleased that everyone at dinner was enthralled with the story she was telling her husband's colleague. Finally, adult contact. And she was interesting to all these important people. They were all staring at her as she told this story. It wasn't until she lifted her fork to feed her husband's colleague that she realized everyone was staring at her because she was cutting up this man's food on his plate and was about to feed him like a toddler. The poor woman had spent so much time with children that she had forgotten how adults eat. This is absolutely precious. Spent about 35 minutes searching for my phone. I mean really tearing my apartment apart. While I was on the phone with a friend, I kept saying, I can't find it anywhere. Where could it be? And my friend just kept suggesting places to look. I didn't figure it out until I ended the call. Then they just texted me, find it yet, and laughed at me forever. I love that they just played along. I was reading in bed and realized none of what I was reading was making any sense. I realized that my eyes were closed and my brain was just making stuff up on its own while my body was trying to sleep, still holding book up and all. I've had similar experiences, but usually in the morning when I try to get up, thinking I need to get up now, my body will just go back to sleep while my brain constructs its own version of the morning's events. It usually takes me 10 or so minutes to realize everything seems kinda off. I was in the passenger seat of my friend's car, and I wanted to turn the radio on, so I started fiddling with it and changing the station and stuff. After a minute my brain freaked the frick out and was like, dude, watch the road. You're driving. So I jolted up in the seat and stared out the windshield cause I thought I was driving the car. We both still laugh about that when I gets in his car. Dude, watch the road. You're driving. I'm shouting that the next time someone dozes off in a car with me. Took my dog out for a walk the other morning, and when we got back home I went to take off his leash, and it was already sitting on the stairs. I walked my dog without his leash and didn't even realize it. Good boy. It's not really that bizarre, but sometimes if there is a curve in the road I put on my blinker even though there is no road to turn on. It's just because of how much the wheel is turning and being used to hitting the blinker. Done this a few times, even round corners I've gone round a million times. I once put a block of cheese on my pizza as a joke and sent the picture to my friends for a laugh. I put the pizza in the oven and didn't realize till about 10 minutes later what fatty cheesy disaster was about to find me. I think you misspelled masterpiece. On maybe my third day of a new job, one of the attorneys I would be working for came into my office to introduce himself. He happened to be pretty attractive, so my brain went into misfire mode. I started to say nice to meet you, but panicked, thinking maybe I had already met him when I interviewed, so I shouldn't say that. So I ended up looking up into his lovely blue eyes and saying, nice, and then, I mean hello Q furious blushing. Nice. Just now, I caught myself with a fork and knife for my cereal. I don't even know how that happened because the spoons are far away from the forks and knives, but whatever. Just yesterday I was grabbing a customer a cookie, and I found myself asking her if she wanted it hot or iced. I'm losing my mind. Cereal in the fridge, milk in the pantry, tea bag in the sink, teaspoon in the bin. I've owned my house for 20 years. I still turn on the incorrect switch for the bathroom light and for the front entry light at least twice a day. Not me, but my dad. Every couple of years he'll have a just woke up autopilot episode. One time, he awoke and my mom said he couldn't figure out how to open the door, so he undid the hinges and took the door out. He did this because he thought he needed to fill my mother's water bottle, which he did, but then he decided it would be better to go into my room and empty the entire thing into my dresser. So basically, he was trying to do his husbandly duties and his construction duties at the same time. When mom and I fully woke up and realized what happened, we lost our minds laughing. I appreciate the concern for my dad, but he really doesn't do this often, so we're not too worried. He always ends up doing mundane chores on autopilot. For instance, he once tried to fold a bunch of clothes because he remembered mom asking him to, but ended up throwing them in the toilet. His wires just get crossed once in a while. And yes, he does keep a few tools in his room. Our upstairs always has a few things to tinker with, and he is a true dad, after all. It's impressive to be able to remove a door without realizing it. Pro tip: don't read the responses to this thread while recovering from surgery, or when you can't breathe due to major head cold. I almost gave myself a panic attack not being able to breathe while wheezing. Hee. My dog won't sit by me now. P.S. Hope your recovery goes well. Getting ready for church on Sunday morning. Tie my tie and it's a little too short. No big deal, I'll just add some length and retie it. Muscle memory completely failed me from there. I had to Google how to tie a tie because I completely forgot how, despite having done it just moments before. Sometimes I have that problem too. I keep a cheat sheet on my closet door for when that happens. Not my brain, but my wife's brain that misfired. We were in bed. She was asleep and I was awake on my phone. She sat up and told me to leave and essentially kicked me out of bed. I was pretty confused, and later it turned out that she was dreaming I was some stranger that she thought she was kicking out of her bed. That was an awkward conversation in the morning. My wife and I often work different shifts. On one of her off days I leaned out to kiss her goodbye around 6:45 am. As I was on my way downstairs and she recoiled and wailed out a noise from beyond at me, then promptly fell back asleep. Claims she has no memory of it. I was picking up my little boy from school and we were just about to leave the playground when I realized I couldn't see his little sister. In fact, I hadn't seen her since we arrived. I went into full panic mode, shouting her name and running frantically about. It was only for a few seconds but enough to alarm the other parents. Then I remembered I left her at home with her dad as he had a day off. A rare day off. So a rare day that I hadn't brought her with me. Excruciatingly embarrassing. I'm sure everyone thought I was off my meds that day. After proposing to my wife, I was in this weird elated state and we were doing the whole huggy kissy thing. Her 11-year-old son wanted to give me a hug and I nearly full on kissed him on the lips. From engaged to jailed in 0.0001 seconds. When I really needed to pee, instead of going to the bathroom I went to the garbage can, stood in front of it and started unzipping. Thank God, I realized what I was doing. I have a chain lock for my bike and sometimes I'll lock it before I want to go. I've done that with my car. Press the lock button then try unsuccessfully to open the door. I was working a long retail shift. As I was ringing up a customer, I needed to shut the registered drawer, which required a bit of force, and hand the change back to the customer. My brain must have mixed up my hands because I ended up giving the drawer just the slightest nudge and throwing the change at the customer. To decrease the chances of him getting and see me having to stay late and straining his bladder, I always take my dog out as the very last thing I do before going to work. I've gotten to the parking garage at work with him happily in the passenger seat about a half dozen times. He's just so ready to go on trips that I kinda let him lead me to the car sometimes instead of back inside. Almost walked out of a public bathroom naked once. I was in there changing clothes and forgot to put my change of clothes on. Fun times. I've nearly done this when trying on new clothes. I carried my stapler from my desk to the metro and tried to swipe it to get on. I used to work at a coffee shop. This was before I actually started drinking coffee, so in the morning I was nowhere near awake enough to be fully functional. One day when starting a new pot of coffee, I knew something was wrong but I was too tired to figure out what it was. Coffee filter? Check. Beans? Check. Turned on machine? Check. Then my co-worker noticed me turn to do something else while coffee started pouring everywhere. It was the pot. I forgot to put the fricking pot for the coffee there. Felt pretty stupid that day, and my caffeine addiction started. Like this video and this good boy will play you a nice song. Like and subscribe you magnificent person.